I've imported Allison, and two things that bothers me when I want to pose my characters within a particular scene or a concept. One is the shadow underneath the characters, and two is the ground plane or the grid plane. I can easily turn off the shadows by clicking this one right here. This little icon, click it on and off, and that helps a little bit. But what about this ground plane? I'm going to physically click on it. It activates it, and when I go over to properties, I can tell it not to see it. I don't want it to cast any shadows, and I also don't want it to have any visibility when I render. So I'm going to turn everything off, and the ground plane is done. So let's go take a look at different poses to choose from. So I'm going to pull on over here, props, and let's go to poses here and select it. And let's go look at some options for posing. Go to poser 8. We have Allison here. And let's take a look at what options we have. We have Allison on the floor. And we might be able to use these poses to actually, or use it as a base to actually create our own pose here. So let's scroll down a little bit. We have sitting 1. That could work. How about sitting 3? That too could work. And as we scroll down, let's try sitting number 2. And I'm looking at number 1M. That might work even better. So let's go ahead and click and drag and apply that pose to Allison. Now, let's take a look at the camera focal length. What was the focal length that was used for this particular photograph? We're not quite sure, so let's go to Photoshop's Bridge. And in Bridge, we're going to go to Essentials. And Essentials has our metadata right here in the bottom. As I scroll this up so that we can see our metadata, it's telling me that my focal length was a 28mm lens with an aperture of 2.8. Okay, that's helpful. So when we go back to Poser, let's select our lens to match the lens that was used to actually photograph this particular scene. Now, how do we do that? We're working in the main camera mode. Currently, the ground is selected, and let's go to our drop menu, and let's go to our cameras. Let's select the main camera. Now that it's selected, let's go over to the parameters, and the parameters currently say that we're using an 80mm focal length. So I'm going to change this to 28mm. There. Now she falls back because of the wider focal length of the lens, it's taking in more coverage. Therefore, she's going to appear to be smaller in the scene. So, not a big deal. We can go to our camera and get in a little bit closer. We're just adjusting the camera, and as we move in, she starts to reflect that of a 28mm lens. So I'm going to approximate how large she would be in this particular scene. Let's go to our translate tool and move her down and place her right about here. I'm going to move her over just a little bit. Okay, not bad. In fact, I have other options. I'm holding the translate tool, and I'm just going to move her on over this way. So she's sitting right on the edge of the rock. I like to avoid compositionally of any lines coming into the character head, as that's distracting as well. I can also move her here. But I think I'm going to go ahead and have her sitting right back in here. That works. I like the darker areas. It's going to help bring out the contour of her shoulders and in the shirt and so forth. So we're taking a look at her, and let's do a quick area render to see what this looks like. Now right over here, top right hand corner, we have a full render, and we have the area render. Now obviously this will render the entire scene, which is not what I want to do at this point. Let's just render a small portion. I'm going to click and drag like I'm selecting it, and when I release, it will begin rendering.